Hi everyone, my name is Elisa Bernstein.
And I'm Stephen Leckie.
And this is Vox Talks. Today we are going to look at American politicians. We're going to analyze their speaking skills.
The argument for President Obama's re-election a lot better. Here it is. He inherited a deeply damaged economy. He put a floor under the crash. He began the long, hard road to recovery and laid the foundation for a modern, more well-balanced economy that will produce millions of good new jobs, vibrant new businesses, and lots of new wealth for innovators.
Bill Clinton, to me, is the best. This man, it's funny, when you talk about Bill Clinton, everybody says it just sounds like he's speaking right to you. It sounds so real. He's got so much charisma. But what is that in terms of real speaking that he does?
The first thing I notice about him is he's present physically before he actually brings in the vocalized, verbalized thought.
Which is amazing because I don't think he learned that from anybody. He's like the Meryl Streep of speakers.
Well, some people have the coordination. I mean, there is genius in every field, right? And he has this coordination. It's not always perfect, mind you, because you often see the old podium pounding, what I call collision and obstruction, right? He's colliding with himself.
But the most important thing is that you see the body taking on these thoughts.
And then what do we get? Tone.
Tone.
I'm sorry, I'm always harping on tone, but it's tone that moves me. It's tone that excites me. And more than that, he also gets rhythmic pacing changes, wonderful pacing changes where you have a line and you have a springboard right after it and then a gap. It's like listening to great music in a way, because you actually put the pause in and then we are all the more alert as the music starts up again. And where's it going to go? Where's it going to go next? All
those things that happen all the time when I'm speaking spontaneously, he's able to bring them into his speech.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And you hear the different pitch levels. He will do one thought over there and then the next one comes in higher. Now he's not thinking about doing that. That's just happening naturally because he's getting a change in his emotion, in his what we call impulse.
That's the key. The key is to actually feed our emotions, feed our commitment, feed our passion about what we're saying, and that leads to good things. Or you simply learn what is missing of those components, practice them, and it actually is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It comes back and nurtures the emotion that may be missing. We see that in Obama and Hillary. We see a little bit of the misfiring of that emotional connection.
And I find people really misunderstand what is great about Clinton. I've read commentaries where it says he has all these pauses, where he uses a certain gesture, but it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah, the pause thing is a bit of a misconception, isn't it? Because pause is a very effective thing if there's development after it. So the pause means that something is happening in the pause. When a pause happens and it's just an empty space, and you can tell because the next line doesn't explode out of that pause or doesn't relate to that pause in some way, then we know we're not having a good dramatic pause as it should be. So pause is critical for speakers to actually build time for the listener to reflect. It allows the listener to actually think about what's being said. In these big political arenas, it allows time for the listener to actually react with applause.
He's a master at using those pauses, but he knows what he's doing. If you suddenly throw in pauses into your speech, it's going to be even worse than if you just speak right through places where you should have taken some time.
Which brings me back to the way that he has of springboarding from thought to thought. He will join thoughts together, he knows that they're related, and then he'll leave the pause. He's not leaving a predictable same pause between each thought.
Just like a musician who will learn a piece of music and study the rhythmic changes, that's what you need to do with a speech. He does it without thinking. The rest of us have to work it through.
Let's take a look at Bill Clinton in a more relaxed interview mode.
So if I say, look, we're going to work on the economic empowerment of poor people, on fighting AIDS and other diseases, on trying to bridge the religious and political differences between people, and on trying to avoid the worst calamities of climate change and help to revitalize the economy in the process. I can actually do that. I mean, because tomorrow when I get up, if there's a bad headline in the paper, it's the President Bush's responsibility, not mine.
It's so interesting because put a few thousand people in front of him and get him standing up in front of a podium, it just sounds like the same person.
Yeah, put a few million in front of him now,
Yeah.
and he is still bringing his passion and his commitment to what he says. And we were just speaking about pauses. Obviously, in this type of situation, there aren't reactions. But it's interesting how he still uses the pause. He still uses good sense of pacing to get what he's getting across.
He uses the pause also to think. He's not umming and erring at all. He's not afraid of taking the time he needs to formulate his next thought.
What I like to see as a voice trainer as well as a speaker that actually has a sense of a forward-directed energy and a backward-reflected energy.
So rare to see that in a speaker.
So rare. And he already has it. You see how he will come forward.
Yeah.
And then he will fall back. That too brings all kinds of qualities to the speaking. But most importantly, that is directly related with how we communicate, how we think.
Right, we naturally go from the more towards and the more away. And he's not afraid because he gets so close because he gets very, very feisty in this interview. It's quite a classic. He gets right close and others would stay there and he's not afraid of coming back because he knows it's not a sign of weakness to go back at all.
Yeah, it draws in the listener, it draws in your prey.
There is an issue that he has that really does need work, and that is his voice.
Well, you can't separate voice and speech necessarily, because at a certain point, if we are looking for tone, if we are looking for variation, if we are looking for development in a speaker, that comes back to a vocal level.
And he's got a very damaged voice.
The most damaging thing that we do to our voices is we push. And we push with the stomach, often mistakenly thought to be supporting with the diaphragm.
Right, everybody says use your diaphragm. Yeah.
You cannot use your diaphragm.
No.
The diaphragm is virtually involuntary. So try to practice your speeches without that abdominal thrust. He is loaded with abdominal thrust.
Right.
It batters the bottom side of the vocal folds, and eventually they cannot quite focus. And you hear, with passage of time, they get less and less focused.
Right.
Voice is muscle. Keep the muscles fit in the same way you're working with a personal trainer. For heaven's sakes, let's keep the voices fit.